somewhere beneath your feet, there are windows, not pipes, not tunnels, windows, with glass, with frames, sometimes with curtains still hanging inside, and nobody officially knows what they were for. These aren't ruins from last century. Some of them are still there, right now, beneath active city streets, beneath modern buildings, beneath places people walk every single day, completely unaware. Archaeologists have found them, engineers have stumbled onto them, urban explorers have filmed them in shaking, terrified silence. And the explanations given, thin, rushed, almost too convenient, because here's the part that nobody talks about. Some of these underground windows face other rooms, not the surface, not the outside, other rooms. What were people watching from down there? What didn't they want seen from above? And why do official records about some of these sites simply stop? Stay with us, because once you see what's been found beneath the ground and what's still being found, you're going to look at the street beneath your feet very differently. And if history's hidden rooms are the kind of rabbit hole you can't resist, make sure you subscribe. We go to the places most channels won't touch. In 1969, a construction crew in Edinburgh was digging routine foundations. Routine. That word is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, because what they hit wasn't bedrock. It was a room, fully intact, with walls, a ceiling, and a window, underground, facing inward, toward another sealed chamber they hadn't found yet. The foreman stopped work immediately, called the city, called archaeologists, called somebody. The official report that came back used one very specific word: anomalous. Not ancient, not medieval, not Roman, anomalous. That's the word you use when you don't want to say you don't know. Now, underground rooms themselves aren't shocking. Cellars exist, crypts exist, old storage tunnels exist. But windows imply observation. Windows imply someone or something needed to be seen, or watched, or monitored. And this Edinburgh room wasn't alone. Similar structures have been documented beneath Paris, beneath sections of Istanbul, beneath a small town in rural Romania that doesn't even appear on Cold War-era maps. Each time, the same strange detail. Windows that face inward, not up toward daylight, toward other underground spaces. Here's the quiet part that historians don't love to discuss. Medieval builders didn't waste resources. Every stone, every frame, every pane of glass cost something. So someone paid for these windows. Someone had a reason, and that reason was important enough to bury. Here's something that should bother you more than it does. Every major underground structure in history has records, blueprints, contracts, someone's name attached to the stone. The Romans documented their aqueducts obsessively. Medieval cathedrals have construction logs going back centuries. Even ancient Egyptian builders left administrative records in the sand. But these rooms, no architect, no commission, no paper trail. It's not that the records were lost. It's that in several cases, investigators found evidence the records were deliberately removed. In 1987, a French urban historian named Marcel Devereux was cataloguing forgotten sections of the Paris underground. Not the famous catacombs tourists visit, the other sections, the ones that aren't on any official map. He found 3 connected chambers, each one with a narrow window cut between them. The glass was still intact, and the frames were built from a wood type that carbon dating placed 2 centuries earlier than the surrounding stonework, meaning someone went back down there, long after the original construction, and added the windows later. Why would you return to a sealed underground room and install a window? Devereux submitted his findings to the French Ministry of Cultural Affairs. He received a polite acknowledgement letter. And then, nothing. His report never entered the official archaeological registry. When asked about it years later, the ministry said they had no record of receiving it. Marcel Devereux died in 2003. His original notes have never been found. Anomalous. Again, let's talk about geometry for a moment, because the placement of these windows isn't random. Researchers who've studied multiple sites, Edinburgh, Paris, Istanbul, the unnamed Romanian location, noticed something that took years to articulate properly. Every window is positioned at the same height, not the same depth underground, not the same era of construction, the same height within the room, approximately 4 feet from the floor. Every time. That's not a coincidence. That's a specification. 4 feet is below standing eye level. It's the height you'd look through if you were crouching, hiding, or if whatever was being observed was low to the ground. Nobody in the academic community has published a clean explanation for this. The ones who've tried tend to use phrases like ritualistic possibility or ceremonial function, which is academic language for, we have absolutely no idea. But here's where it gets quietly uncomfortable. In 2011, during subway expansion work beneath Istanbul, workers uncovered a chamber that matched the pattern exactly. Inward-facing window, 4 feet high, sealed room beyond it. But this one had something the others didn't. Scratch marks on the inside of the glass. Not the outside, the inside. Something, or someone, had been on the other side of that window, trying to get out, or trying to get seen. The Istanbul chamber was sealed within 48 hours of discovery. Officially, for structural safety reasons, the glass was not preserved, it was disposed of. Every mystery has a human layer beneath it, and this one is no different, because scattered across different decades, different countries, different disciplines, there are people who got close to these windows, who studied them, who asked the right questions, and then, quietly, stopped asking. Not dramatically, no sudden disappearances, no conspiracy thriller endings, just silence, career pivots, retirement announcements that came a little early. A structural engineer in Bucharest named Ioan Petrescu spent 3 years in the early 2000s mapping underground anomalies beneath the city's oldest district. He gave one interview, a small Romanian archaeology journal. 2004. In it he said, and this is a direct translation, the rooms were not built to store things. They were built to contain a specific kind of attention. Then he clarified nothing and never gave another interview on the subject. In that same journal, 3 pages after Petrescu's interview, there's a small editorial note. It says his findings could not be independently verified because access to the sites had been administratively restricted. Administratively restricted? By whom? The journal doesn't say. This pattern repeats with uncomfortable consistency. A discovery, a researcher, a brief, carefully worded statement, then administrative fog. Here's the dark irony in all of this. The windows were built to make something visible, and yet, every single time someone gets close enough to really look, the view gets blocked, not by stone, not by time, by paperwork. So, what are they? After everything, Edinburgh, Paris, Istanbul, Bucharest. After the missing records, the disposed glass, the researchers who went quiet. What's the most honest answer we have? Here it is. Nobody knows. And that, in itself, is the most unsettling part, because we live in an era of ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, LiDAR scanning that can map underground structures from satellites. We have the technology to find these rooms without even touching the ground. And yet, the research remains scattered, underfunded, quietly discouraged. The windows exist. That part is documented, photographed, witnessed by credible professionals across multiple continents. But the why stays buried. Here's the theory that serious researchers, not conspiracy theorists, actual archaeologists, keep returning to privately. These rooms were built for observation during periods of extreme social control, plague quarantines, religious persecution, political imprisonment dressed up in cleaner language. The windows weren't for light, they were for monitoring. Someone above, someone below, and a narrow pane of glass between them, just wide enough to watch. Too small to help, and maybe that's the answer that was always there. Not supernatural, not extraterrestrial, just deeply, quietly human. We have always built systems to watch the vulnerable, and we have always been very good at burying the evidence afterward. The windows below ground aren't a mystery of architecture, they're a mirror, and you just looked into it. If this kind of buried history keeps you up at night, you're in the right place. Subscribe, because we're just getting started.